I'm gonna be honest, man, the Boston Bruins and Carolina Hurricanes first round series was one that I really didn't have my eyes on all too much. Sure, I saw the highlights, sure, I saw the goals and everything, but like, the 1 p.m. starts here on the West Coast, the fact that I'm still making videos during that time, the fact that all the games that I was paying attention to started at 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. PST, I just didn't really have my eyes on Carolina-Boston all too much. But yesterday, we saw ourselves Game 7, wherein the Carolina Hurricanes defeated Boston once and for all after choking away a pretty good stranglehold they had on the series, and now they're going out to the second round, and they're going to play either the New York Rangers or the Pittsburgh Penguins. The winner of that Game 7 will be decided later tonight, and we will see who faces Carolina then. But I wanted to talk about some Montreal guys that are now on Carolina, because of course, I am a secondary Canadiens fan, so I have to make everything about my favorite teams. I know some people might go out there and get pissed off about that. Hey, Lego, you already made a video talking about the Canadiens, and Shane Wright, you talked about David Jiricek earlier today. That could be a Canadiens pickup if they trade down, whatever. Why are you making this all Canadiens based today? Well, because it's my channel and I'm gonna do what I want, so yeah, let's talk about Carolina-Boston, let's talk about some Canadiens guys that are now in the Hurricanes, and let's talk about their impacts on the series. Starting off with Max Domi, because boy oh boy, this guy came to play in his very first Game 7 in his NHL career. He has himself what is probably the performance of his life, and hopefully there's more to come for Domi, because man, Game 7 to him was the reason why he's gonna go out there and earn himself a payday on his next contract. Honestly, I'm happy for the guy, because in Game 7 he went out there and scored 2 goals and an assist, 3 points in the first half of the game, so at like the 10-minute mark of the second period is when he got his second goal. He's got 5 points in 7 postseason games so far, half of them came yesterday, and when it comes to how Domi has been producing, I mean, Cam Robinson said it best. He had 3 points in his last 11 games coming into yesterday, and he's got 3 points halfway through Game 7. Looking like a smart deadline acquisition now for the Carolina Hurricanes, and I could not go out there and agree more. Domi has had a pretty rough little go here the past few years, ever since his 70-point year in Montreal, leading to the 44-point year in 71 games in the shortened bubble year. That was kind of seen as somewhat of a bounce back for a lot of people in the Canadiens fan base. You see what he did in the postseason, 3 points, 10 games. They eliminated the Penguins in the play-in series and then lost to the Flyers. Domi didn't have the best playoffs that year. You really saw a lot of other guys in the Canadiens step up to play. Kotkaniemi was one of them as well, but when it came to the trade, which saw him get sent over to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Josh Anderson, and you saw Domi get re-signed to a $5.3 million AAV, it was seen by most people as an interesting transitory move, because the Columbus Blue Jackets signed him to a short-term deal. Domi would be a UFA by the time his contract expired, and just seeing Max Domi in Columbus, he wasn't really as big of a fit as you would have wanted him to be. He had 24 points in 54 games played in his first year, and there were a whole bunch of controversies around Tortorella and the benching, fourth line, this and that. Another trade, is that on the horizon? Who really knows? We made videos about Max Domi in high quantity over the past few years because of it. And this season, we finally saw him actually get traded. He had 32 points in 53 games played with the regular Blue Jackets, and then he got sent over to Carolina. At the deadline, 7 points, 19 games played, and then he's got 5 points and 7 in the postseason, with Game 7 being the grandest stage of them all for him to get those points. He single-handedly eliminated the Boston Bruins when you really think about it that way. It was a 1-0 goal by Teuvo Teravainen that was assisted by Domi. It was a very nice feed right in front from the point from Jacob Slavin, I believe. Domi receives it back door. He sends it right out in front once again to Teravainen, who pots it in. Makes no mistake, it's 1-0 Carolina. It then becomes 2-0 Carolina when Domi takes a rebound in the corner, and he walks right in with very limited space and shoves it into the open cage. Give it a few minutes, and Jake DeBrusk brings the lead within 1, making things interesting for fans in the Carolina building that were starting to get a little bit anxious. And then you have yourselves Trent Frederick, who hits a post on the rush. It beats Antti Ranta clean, but it deflects out to the side. It's picked up by Carolina, and they start out a rush. The Hurricanes break in, and there's a centering pass right in front to Domi, who hammers it. He's in the top area of the slot near the hash marks, and it goes right in. 3 points in the first half, 30 minutes of the game right there for Domi. That's all she wrote. Boston got things within one in the last 20 seconds, and then they scrambled in the last 20 seconds to try to get another one and tie it up, but they didn't end up doing so. It's a 3-2 victory for the Carolina Hurricanes. Max Domi with the game-winning goal, as well as another goal and an assist. He had the game of his life last night, and you could say what you want about his regular season production, this and that or whatever, but the Hurricanes are now past the Boston Bruins, and it's almost pretty much because of Max Domi. So him doing what he did, he might get himself a pretty good contract next offseason. Who really knows if there's more to come for Domi in this postseason run here, but lo and behold, he had a game, and that's kind of all you need to really cement yourselves in the history books in these sorts of situations. Wasn't it Ruslan Fedotenko, the last guy to score 2 goals in a Game 7, which was matched by Nick Paul yesterday in Tampa Bay Lightning history? Yeah, the Carolina Hurricanes, they've got another guy who kind of went out there and just did the same thing. So Max Domi earlier in the same night had a 2-goal performance. Good for him, right? But I also wanted to talk about another former Montreal Canadien who had suited up in all 7 games for the Hurricanes and who did not have nearly the same amount of success. JESPERI KOTKANIEMI. Because boy oh boy, did the guy go out there and absolutely post up donuts on the board. 0 points, 0 goals, 0 assists. He had 2 penalty minutes and was a -4 in the 7-game sample right here. Now I will say right away, and I said this at the beginning of the video, that I'm not really the guy who paid the most attention to these games. But via dailyfaceoff.com, JESPERI KOTKANIEMI was playing on the 4th line with Max Domi and Derek Stepan. So something's kind of got to give here, right? Derek Stepan also had 0 points in the series, go figure, but he only had 3 games played. KOTKANIEMI, on the other hand, you got to remember, this guy came over via offer sheet. He had 29 points in 66 games played. Do the math, over a full 82-game campaign, and you can see that he was on pace for 36 points. He got re-signed to a huge $4.8 million AAV contract, which takes him until 2030. He's 21 years old right now, so I definitely do acknowledge that there's a lot more time and development for KOTKANIEMI to go through before he really maxes out towards his NHL peak. But so far, I mean, has anybody really been impressed? I get that $4.8 million isn't a huge amount, but still, if KOTKANIEMI goes out there and plays to the way that he's been playing in these playoff games towards the rest of the run, and maybe towards the rest of his tenure in Carolina, which I get it, it's 8 years long, it's likely not going to be that way the entire time, but you still got to think about it at the very least, right? KOTKANIEMI went out there and had 0 points in a series where, I mean, it went down to the wire pretty much. The Hurricanes had the lead earlier, they blew it, they lost a few games to Boston, and now it went to Game 7. It's just kind of interesting to see how some players really do step up and others have not been able to in the same capacity. And I know KOTKANIEMI is a guy that a lot of Canadiens fans, especially on Twitter, have been talking about recently, mostly because of some concerns brought up by Grant McKegg, which we're going to have to talk about soon on the channel as well. But for JESPERI KOTKANIEMI and Max Domi, it's really interesting to see the dichotomy in development and the dichotomy in production that these guys have exhibited. I know they're like 7 years apart. Domi is 27 and KOTKANIEMI is 21 years old, so there is a lot of differentiation that you need to make there. Domi had a 70-point year for Montreal, for crying out loud. But for JESPERI KOTKANIEMI, it's still interesting keeping tabs on this guy, seeing where he's at ever since that offer sheet was made. Whether or not the Canadiens are better off with KOTKANIEMI in the lineup or not, it remains to be seen. You also got to remember that the Canadiens got the first overall pick this year, and Shane Wright is likely going to come in and fill that hole that KOTKANIEMI/Dvorak were supposed to go out there and fill, but haven't really fulfilled to the best of their abilities just yet. The Carolina first offer sheet compensation was sent over to Arizona because of the Dvorak trade, and there was that entire clause that protected Montreal's own first-round pick from going over there, which was a pretty good lifesaver since it did end up being first overall. But either way, you can let me know in the comments all your thoughts about KOTKANIEMI and Domi, how they performed in the postseason so far for the Carolina Hurricanes, and what you saw out of Max Domi in Game 7 yesterday. The guy came alive with 3 points, and they only scored 3 goals in total, so Domi had himself a very big hand in defeating the Bruins. Very nice to see from the eyes of the Canadiens fan base, and I'm pretty sure nobody's going to dispute that. As for KOTKANIEMI, though, 0 points, 7 games. He didn't have the best regular season either. He had limited development time and limited playing time as well, so I know a lot of Hurricanes fans still do believe in this guy, but still, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.